At exactly 2:47 p.m. on February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston made her final phone call. The conversation lasted 8 minutes and 32 seconds. What she said in those last moments would change everything investigators thought they knew about her death, and reveal a truth so shocking that the person on the other end of the line would remain silent for over a decade. The call was made from Whitney's suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel, just hours before she would be found dead in her bathtub. The number she dialed belonged to someone the world would never expect, someone who had been watching her spiral downward for years, someone who knew secrets that could destroy careers and lives, someone who was waiting for this exact call. But to understand why Whitney made this final phone call, and why it would prove to be the most important 8 minutes of her life, we must first understand the web of deception and control that had trapped America's golden voice for decades. February 11, 2012, had started like any other day for Whitney Houston. She was preparing for Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammy party, an event that had once been her domain but now felt like a trial by fire. The pressure was immense. This was supposed to be her comeback moment, her chance to prove she was clean, healthy, and ready to reclaim her throne as the queen of American music. But Whitney was carrying a burden that no one around her understood. She had recently discovered something that shattered her understanding of her own life story. Documents had surfaced, recordings had been found, and Whitney finally knew the truth about who had really controlled her career, her relationships, and ultimately, her destruction. The person she called that afternoon was Dr. Marcus Coleman, a psychiatrist who had treated Whitney secretly for over 15 years. Dr. Coleman was not part of her official medical team. He was someone Whitney had found on her own, someone outside the industry's influence, someone she could trust with her deepest secrets and darkest fears. Their relationship had begun in 1997, during Whitney's first real attempt to get clean. She had sought out Dr. Coleman specifically because he worked with celebrities who wanted complete anonymity, complete separation from the entertainment industry's network of doctors, publicists, and handlers. What Whitney told him in their sessions would have shocked the world, but Dr. Coleman had maintained his professional silence for decades, until now. "Dr. Coleman, it's Whitney," she said when he answered the phone that fateful afternoon. Her voice was different from their usual sessions. There was a clarity, an urgency, and something that sounded almost like relief. "I need you to know that I finally have the evidence. I finally have proof of what they did to me." Dr. Coleman knew immediately what she meant. For 15 years, Whitney had been telling him about a conspiracy she believed existed around her. Powerful people in the music industry who had systematically manipulated her life, her career, her relationships, and her health. Most of her previous psychiatrists and therapists had dismissed these claims as paranoid delusions brought on by drug use. Dr. Coleman had listened more carefully. "Whitney, where are you right now?" Dr. Coleman asked, sensing the dangerous mix of excitement and desperation in her voice. "I'm at the Beverly Hills Hotel getting ready for Clive's party tonight. But Marcus, I don't think I'm going to make it to that party. I think they're going to stop me before I can tell the world what I know." What Whitney revealed in that phone call would haunt Dr. Coleman for the rest of his life. She told him she had obtained recordings of conversations between her mother, Cissy Houston, and music executives dating back to the early 1980s. These recordings revealed that Whitney's entire career had been orchestrated, not just to make her famous, but to make her dependent and controllable. "They planned it all, Marcus," Whitney said, her voice growing stronger as she spoke. "The drugs weren't my weakness. They were their weapon. They gave me pills to perform when I was exhausted, pills to sleep when I couldn't stop thinking, pills to numb the pain of what they were doing to my personal life. Then they used my addiction to justify controlling everything I did." Dr. Coleman listened in growing horror as Whitney described discovering financial records that showed how millions of her earnings had been siphoned off through dummy corporations and shell companies. She had found evidence of payoffs to journalists to plant negative stories about her when she became too independent. She had uncovered proof that her marriage to Bobby Brown had been encouraged by her management team because they believed a troubled relationship would keep her distracted and dependent on their guidance. But the most devastating revelation was yet to come. Marcus, they recorded everything, every private moment, every breakdown, every vulnerable conversation. They have hours of footage of me at my worst, and they've been using it to blackmail me for years. Every time I tried to leave, every time I wanted to fire someone or change direction, they would threaten to release those recordings. Whitney explained that she had finally obtained copies of these recordings through a former employee who had grown disgusted with what he had witnessed. Seeing herself through their eyes, watching herself being manipulated and exploited when she was most vulnerable, had been both devastating and liberating. I know who I really am now, Marcus. I know the difference between my real problems and the problems they created for me. And I'm going to expose them all tonight at the party. I have the evidence with me. I have the recordings, the financial documents, the correspondence. I'm going to tell the world the truth. Dr. Coleman felt a chill run through him. Whitney, maybe you should wait. Maybe we should meet first, plan this out carefully. These are powerful people you're talking about. I can't wait anymore, Whitney replied, and Dr. Coleman could hear her moving around her hotel room, papers rustling in the background. I'm 48 years old, Marcus. I've wasted too many years being their puppet. My daughter deserves to know the truth about what happened to her mother. The world deserves to know that I wasn't just a drug addict who threw her life away. I was a victim who fought back. Whitney then shared something that would keep Dr. Coleman awake for years to come. She told him she had been receiving death threats for the past month, ever since word had leaked that she was gathering evidence against certain industry figures. Her phone had been hacked, her hotel rooms had been searched, and she was certain she was being followed. They know I'm about to expose them, she said, and they know what that will mean for their careers, their fortunes, their freedom. Some of these people have committed serious crimes, Marcus. This isn't just about bad business practices. This is about systematic abuse, financial fraud, and conspiracy. The conversation took an even more ominous turn when Whitney described a meeting that had taken place the night before. 3 men had come to her hotel suite, men she had trusted for years, men who had claimed to be looking out for her best interests. They offered me $25 million to keep quiet, she told Dr. Coleman. Can you believe that? $25 million to pretend I never saw the evidence, to go back to being their controllable little puppet. They said if I took the money, I could retire quietly, get clean, and live a peaceful life out of the spotlight. What did you tell them? Dr. Coleman asked, though he already knew the answer. I told them to go to hell, Whitney replied, and for the first time in the conversation, she laughed. It was a sound Dr. Coleman hadn't heard from her in years, genuine, free, and fearless. I told them that no amount of money was worth my daughter growing up thinking her mother was just a pathetic addict. I told them that I'd rather die than let them win. The final minutes of the conversation were the most heartbreaking. Whitney spoke about her daughter Bobby Christina, about her hopes for the future, about the music she wanted to make once she was free from their control. She talked about starting a foundation to help other artists who had been exploited by the industry. She even mentioned wanting to write a book about her experiences. Marcus, if something happens to me, I want you to know that I died fighting. I died telling the truth. Don't let them turn me into a cautionary tale about the dangers of fame and addiction. Make sure people know that I was murdered by greed, not destroyed by drugs. Whitney, don't talk like that, Dr. Coleman pleaded. Nothing is going to happen to you. We can figure this out together. I love you for believing that, Whitney said softly. You've been the only person in my life who truly listened to me, who saw me as more than just a product or a problem. Thank you for giving me my sanity back. Thank you for helping me remember who Whitney Houston really was. underneath all their lies. The call ended at 2:55 p.m. 8 minutes and 32 seconds later, Whitney Houston would begin preparing for what she believed would be the most important performance of her life. Not a song, but a confession that would free her from decades of exploitation and control. Instead, at 3:55 p.m., almost exactly 1 hour after hanging up with Dr. Coleman, Whitney Houston was found unconscious in her hotel room bathtub. She was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m., and the official cause would later be listed as accidental drowning due to drug intoxication. But Dr. Coleman knew better. He had spent 8 minutes and 32 seconds listening to a woman who was clean, determined, and ready to reclaim her life. He had heard no slurred speech, no confusion, no signs of intoxication. He had heard a woman who had finally found her strength and was ready to use it. For over a decade, Dr. Coleman kept Whitney's final words secret, bound by doctor-patient confidentiality and his own fear of the powerful people she had been planning to expose. But as those figures have died or been prosecuted for other crimes, Dr. Coleman has finally decided to share Whitney's last conversation with the world. Whitney Houston's final phone call wasn't a goodbye. It was a battle cry from a woman who refused to die without fighting for the truth. 8 minutes and 32 seconds that revealed the real Whitney Houston. Not a victim, but a hero who died trying to free herself and protect her daughter from the same fate. The recording of that call still exists, locked away in Dr. Coleman's private files. Someday, when it's safe, the world will hear Whitney Houston's real last words and finally understand that America's golden voice died not from addiction, but from having the courage to speak truth to power.